Hello and welcome to Training with Amy Lenz or EO Coaching. Today we are going to be talking about counting macros and why counting macros is important. We're going to cover who should or shouldn't track macros, when macro counting is appropriate, and what are macros. We're really going over the basics, and we're going to make sure that you know exactly when you should do it and when you shouldn't do it, because macro counting isn't for everybody, but it does provide a certain amount of flexibility, and it can also help you if you are someone looking to lose weight, drop body fat, or if you are a bodybuilder. It can be beneficial for you because you have to be very strict to get the results that you're looking for when you're bodybuilding. However, I am going to be speaking on macronutrients in terms of the general population, being healthy, getting fit, and losing body fat. So let's go ahead and dive in. If you like this video, then you can join my free school community where I post weekly lives and I go into discussions of topics like this on nutrition, fitness, and mindset to help you learn as much as you possibly can about health and fitness and help you be successful on your health and wellness journey. If that's something you're interested in and you want to join a community of like-minded individuals who are also working towards becoming healthier and you want some more support, then go ahead and click the link below and you can join my free school community if you are not already in it. And if you are in it, then thank you for being here. And I look forward to helping you reach your health and fitness goals in any way that I can. All right, so jumping into counting macros. So who should and shouldn't count macros? Athletes, people who have specific dietary goals. Proteins are the building blocks of your muscles, and that is going to provide nutrients to help repair and recover your muscles. So that is why tracking macros is important if you're an athlete. If you have specific dietary goals like weight loss or you want to gain muscle, then you definitely need to be tracking your macros, because with weight loss, you can count calories and lose weight. But if you want to lose weight and look good, then you're going to want to count macros because it's going to help you keep muscle and lose fat instead of possibly losing muscle. And then you get to your goal weight and you're like, well, I don't look any different. And what's the point of that? You're not going to feel better about yourself because you look the same, just in a smaller body. It's so, so important because, once again, protein is the building block of muscle. So if you want to build muscle, then you need to be eating a certain amount of protein. And that certain amount of protein is at least 1 gram per pound of body weight and can even be up to 1.2 or 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And then it's also important if you have health conditions that need to be managed dietarily that you macros, right? So if you're diabetic, you're going to be counting carbohydrates, and that's important because you don't want your blood sugar to go above a certain level. And when you count carbohydrates, that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? Protein is the number one macronutrient, and it's very important for muscle building. And if you have more muscle, then you can eat more carbohydrates without spiking your blood glucose levels. If you have diabetes, you are going to be better off eating more protein and being able to metabolize more carbohydrates through your muscles than if you don't have as much muscle. And you're also going to be more metabolically healthy for when things do arise that may keep you inactive for a while. Who shouldn't track macros? People with eating disorders, those who struggle with negative body image, or if you find counting macros to be stressful or overwhelming. Someone I wouldn't suggest counting macros for would be a new mom, because if you're a new mom, you've got a baby, you're just going to have a lot of new responsibilities, and taking on a lot of responsibilities and then trying to track your macros is just going to be a recipe for disaster, and it's going to set you up for failure. So it's better if you focus on portion control and focusing on eating protein, carbs, and fats in a equal ratio instead of focusing on, okay, let me get these specific numbers and let's type it into MyFitnessPal, because then you're going to be stressed over one extra thing on your to-do list when you're not sleeping, you're not eating well, and you're probably just out of your entire routine. So that would be 1% that I would recommend you should not track your macros unless this is something that you're familiar with, or you're an athlete or a bodybuilder and you've done this in the past and it doesn't feel stressful or overwhelming to you. Macros ultimately have their time and place. And if you're going to count macros, then you want to go all in, and you have to be in the right mindset to do so. If you're not in the right mindset, that is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with not counting macros, but it is a really great tool to help you improve your body composition, lose body fat, and get to your athletic goals as well. So let's talk about when counting macros is appropriate. When you have short-term goals, such as achieving a specific body weight or body composition target, which body composition means losing body fat or gaining muscle, or maybe it's both. It can also be for educational purposes. What that means is learning about nutrition and portion control, because when you track your macros, this is going to help you be more mindful of the habits that you are creating, and it's going to help you bring more awareness to what you're putting into your body. I always say to look at your macros and your calories. You have a budget, and your set number of proteins for the day, carbs for the day, and fats for the day is your budget. And if you run out of those, then you don't have any more. That can help you guide you in the right direction and help you to see, this may be a spot where I need to work on. If you're over on carbohydrates or over on fats consistently, then you know that's something that you need to work on within your macro budget. Let's go into counting macros. What are macros? Macros are proteins, carbs, and fats. Macros means macronutrients, which are the large nutrients that your body needs in order to function properly. Protein, once again, I've said this probably 4 or 5 times now, are the building blocks to repair muscle. Proteins are the starting point for every function that your body does, because without proteins, your body literally would not exist, because proteins are needed to build your body. Carbohydrates are going to be your body's main fuel source. Carbohydrates fuel your brain, they fuel your muscles, they fuel your liver, and they provide energy throughout your entire body and for every activity that we do. Fats are a secondary fuel source. They provide energy, they support cell function, they absorb vitamins and minerals like vitamin D, actually A, D, E, and K, that fats are going to absorb. And so that way, whenever you are not eating and consuming as many of these nutrients, your body can pull the vitamins from those fat stores to help support your bodily function. And things like vitamins are what we call micronutrients, which is another term that you've probably heard of. Micronutrients are equally important as macronutrients, but macronutrients tend to be what we focus on more, because this is what gives you energy and is what changes your body composition, where vitamins and minerals are things that are actually going to change the way you feel internally and speed up certain functions inside of the body. What advantage does counting macros have over portion control? So when we talk about portion control, this is going to be, okay, I went to a Mexican restaurant and I got fajitas and I ate half the plate, I ate half the beans and half the rice. That's just saying, okay, well, I'm just eating whatever and I'm not eating a lot of it. But when you track macros, you can have more food choices, and it's going to help you focus on eating a certain number of nutrients. The certain amount of carbohydrates and fats means limiting yourself so that we don't overdo it and end up getting metabolic diseases like diabetes or even heart disease from having too much of certain nutrients. With macros, you're also going to be more precise. So you're going to have a more accurate understanding of what kinds of foods that you're putting into your body. And it's also going to help you become more aware of what you're doing, right? So that means, are you eating more carbohydrates? Are you eating more fats? Are you eating enough protein? It can provide a lot of insight and awareness into what you may need to work on and what you're good at, even. So let's talk about how to count macros now. So when you count macros, you obviously need to set goals for those macros. You want to use either a macro calculator, you can consult a dietitian, or you can ask me. If you DM me or message me on Skool, I can help you set up your own personal macros. But when you do that, that's going to give you a certain number of protein, carbs, and fats so you can track your food intake. And that's the second thing you're going to be doing. So you want to use a fitness or health tracker that allows you to track your macros. A few of those are MyFitnessPal. There's another one called Macros AI. You can have a free trial. I think it lasts like 2 to 4 weeks, and then you pay for it after that. MyFitnessPal is free. And then there's also another tracker that I've used in the past called Carbon Diet Coach, which is kind of like a nutrition coach, and it updates your goals every week based on what you're weighing in at. You can also manually record your meals, but it just may be more time consuming to either write all of that down or to type it all in a note on your phone. And I would honestly recommend making it digital and typing it on your phone, because then you have it with you all the time, where if you write it down at home and you're eating out, you may not remember exactly what you ate. The next thing you're going to do when you're tracking macros is you're going to need to buy a food scale so you can weigh your food. The reason why you're going to be doing this is because this is going to make sure that you are accurate in your tracking. Because if you're just willy-nilly using measuring cups, or you're just putting stuff on a plate and guessing, then you may not know how much you're really truly consuming. And that might lead to overconsumption or underconsumption. And you really think you're getting, I don't know, say 2,100 calories when maybe you're actually getting 1,400 calories. That's one thing that you want to be sure that you're doing, is weighing your food, especially when you first get started, because you really don't know how much something is until you actually measure a few times, and then you get used to the portion size. Now you also want to calculate your macros and add up each food item that you consume. The reason why using a tracker like MyFitnessPal or Macros AI is so good is because you can let the tracker tell you how much of each thing that you've eaten. And then you also want to adjust your intake as needed. If you're not meeting your macro calculator goal, the goal that calculator spit out for you, then you might need to adjust your goals downward or upwards to meet your diet needs. And obviously, if you are in a deficit, then you might want to consult a professional who can help you decide what deficit is right for you. That way you're not over and underdoing it. A good deficit is plus or minus anywhere from 50 to 500 calories, depending on how steep of a deficit that you want to go into. But I would always recommend starting with a smaller deficit and working your way up. So if you're looking to find what a good deficit for you might be, you might also calculate what's called your BMR, or your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate is the number of calories that you burn at rest when you do nothing all day. This isn't your total energy expenditure. So your BMR goes with something called your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. So your total daily energy expenditure is going to be more accurate because it takes your activity level into account, and then you can subtract anywhere from 50 to 500 calories for that. If you are new to creating a deficit, then you probably want to start with about 50 calories and see how your body responds to it. And you can always increase your deficit each week, or you can leave it if you're okay with losing less weight per week. 500 calories is a really steep deficit, so I would definitely be mindful of that. A moderate deficit is anywhere from 150 to 250 calories. And you can typically expect to lose, if you're doing the deficit of 250 calories daily, you can expect to lose about 1 to 1.5 pounds per week. And obviously, this is different with each person, so it may not line up to be exactly what I say if your body functions differently than my body or what a typical macro calculator might tell you. So we talked about macros in terms of weight loss, and the same is true for weight gain. So if you're trying to gain weight, you want to plus 50 to 500 calories, and you want to start slow, because with eating more calories means it's going to be harder to consume that food, and you want to give your body and your stomach time to adjust to eating more food. How to be successful with counting your macros. You want to start slowly, and you can gradually increase the complexity of your tracking. So if you want to start off and you're a beginner, you might start with just tracking your protein intake. You can track all your food, but just worry about hitting your protein, because that's going to be the hardest one to hit, especially if your goal is 150 grams of protein per day. If you are used to eating 50 grams of protein a day, you're going to have to increase that intake very slowly. So just remember that whenever you're starting out tracking macros, you can always start with one macronutrient and then work your way. Now I got my protein, work your way to carbs, and then work your way to getting your fats in check. And then you also want to make sure that you are consistent. So if you're not consistently tracking, then that's going to decrease the likelihood of you getting the result that you intended to. So tracking consistently means tracking for at least 5 days a week. And I would definitely make sure you're tracking that, if not 7 days a week. When tracking it, you don't have to be perfect. However, you want to make sure that you are tracking most of your meals. If you're looking for an 80-20 approach, you could probably skip tracking 3 meals a week and still hit your goals consistently and make sure that you're getting the results that you want. Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? So consult with a dietitian, nutritionist. You can message me for help. I do have a nutrition certification. I am able to help you set up your macros and give you customized advice to help you with your goals, whatever those may be. And then, of course, focus on progress, not perfection. Small steps can really add up to big results over time. When we're talking about starting slow, even just tracking your protein can make a significant difference in the composition of your body. That is something that I definitely recommend. And just remember that the longer that you track macros, the better that you're going to get at it and the better results that you're going to get. But this is not something that you can do for your entire life unless your profession requires it of you, being an athlete or a bodybuilder. And even then, there are seasons where you might need to cycle away from counting macros because it can become mentally taxing and overwhelming. So I would definitely recommend taking breaks from counting macros. And you also can't always be in a deficit or a surplus. If you're constantly eating in a deficit, eventually you're going to hit a plateau and you're not going to get the same results. And a lot of people talk about your metabolism being broken, when in reality it's not broken. It's just that your body now thinks that this is the amount of calories that I'm getting, so I'm going to survive off of it, right? And when we start to do that and your body adapts down to meet your metabolism at a certain point, then you begin to possibly have fatigue, not get the same results that you were getting. You're maintaining your weight at that lower number of calories. And we always want to be able to maintain our weight at a relatively healthy number of calories. And you want to feel energized. You don't want to feel like you're lacking energy. So if you are lacking energy, you probably have been in a deficit for far too long. Being in a deficit for too long can also impact your hormones and cause a slew of other issues. So being in a deficit safely for anywhere from 12 weeks to maybe even just 4 weeks is something that is realistic. However long that you are in a deficit for, you want to be in a maintenance phase for that same amount of time. And the same can be true for building muscle and being in a surplus, eating more than you need in order to gain weight. You don't want to be in a constant state of surplus. This can be overwhelming and it can also put stress on your body in a different way. So you want to make sure that you take time away from that. I would suggest the same approach. If you're dieting or surplus for 4 weeks, then 4 weeks of maintenance. And then same thing, if you're in it for 6 or 12 weeks, then 6 or 12 weeks of maintenance. That way you get equal time in each phase and you're able to let your body do what it wants to do and be in just a natural state instead of constantly overwhelming it and telling it that it needs to make these changes. Sometimes your body being in maintenance is actually really healthy. Just remember that whenever you're thinking about tracking macros and starting your journey. So that's all for today. We talked about tracking macros, who should track their macros, who shouldn't. And we talked about how to track macros and how to be successful at doing so. If you like this video, be sure to like, share, and comment on this video and tell me what you enjoyed about it and what you want to see more of. And remember, you can join my school community. Click the link in the bio below. If you're already a part of my school community, I appreciate you being here. And if you ever need anything, just feel free to message me in the support section, and I will do whatever I can to help you as much as I can. So have a good night.